This program is made possible by the support of Delta Dental, Quick Trip, Marshfield Clinic Health System, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Hospital Association, Watch Wisconsin Eye on Spectrum Channels 995 and 363, and at wisi.org.
We've got about 36 people here, 37. So anytime you want to get going, Megan.
Great. All right, so I think we can kick it off. So thanks everyone for joining this evening. The polls in Wisconsin are now closed. All of the ballots have been cast and received, but our election officials aren't finished serving our voters. I'd argue that right now, local election officials are embarking on their most important service to our voters, and that's counting each valid ballot. This process is truly a labor of love. It really is. It requires care, precision, and strict adherence to complex laws. And it's also supported by powerful technology like the statewide database that ensures only one ballot can be counted per voter. It's a big responsibility, but one that we as election officials are honored to have. We are humbled to bring fair elections to our great state. And the care, the security, the transparency that goes into each ballot cast ensures that no matter what the final result of this election is, that it will be one that we can all have the utmost confidence in. I want to thank our local election officials for a smooth election day. Many of them have a long night ahead as you tally each ballot, and I just want them to know that their tireless work this year really does not go unnoticed. And thank you to our voters for their preparedness, for seeking out the facts about elections, and for not perpetuating rumors. We really didn't see that today, and we really do appreciate people paying attention to that. And thank you to the observers around the states. They play an important role and exemplify transparency in elections. And of course, thank you to all of you, to all the reporters, to the media for your responsible, thoughtful reporting today on today's election. And thank you for checking the details and for making sure that you get the facts right. So voting today went well. It went very well. While voters were casting their in-person ballots, poll workers counted absentees throughout the day. That process continues tonight until every ballot is counted. There's no cutoff or deadline to finish counting. They must keep counting until the job is done right. So be patient. Voters and media are free to observe in your communities as that counting continues to happen. There's no dark corners or locked doors in elections. You can watch it all unfold in your local communities. But you should know that your local election officials are using this time, the time that they need, to make sure that your ballot is counted. So I can't think of any more important way to spend an evening and into the morning than making sure that your ballot is counted. So now to talk a little bit about the mechanics of what you can expect to see tonight. And so for all of you on this call, I really want to make sure that we understand exactly what you're going to see as unofficial results start coming in. And I also think we've got a little more time tonight now that the polls are closed to answer questions as well. So really, I'm at your disposal to make sure that we get it right and that we get information out there that's correct. And again, that voters can have confidence in that process. So what are we going to see tonight? What can we expect? So unofficial results. Unofficial results are created tonight and they come in from each of the individual polling places in most locations. So the law says that once a reporting unit is finished counting, so a reporting unit is established by law as a unit that has a certain ballot style, right? So where the district and ward boundaries are drawn, they have a specific ballot style. When a reporting unit is finished, when they have all their ballots in, and this doesn't include central count, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that reporting unit has 2 hours to send those unofficial results from their reporting unit to their county, okay? And then once they send those unofficial results for their reporting unit to the county then has 2 hours to post those unofficial results by reporting unit to the county's website. Then the next step is that the WEC, so the Wisconsin Elections Commission, we maintain a list of counties on our website. So if you go to elections.wi.gov, you're going to see the list of counties and also some information about how all this works and what you can expect to see. There are no official aggregate results on election night. So the law says that each of those 72 counties, they post the unofficial results for their municipalities, and we maintain a list of those counties. So you do have to go to the 72 counties to see the results for those individual counties. There's also, and this is on the elections.wi.gov site as well, there are also 39 jurisdictions in our state, and they're listed there, that conduct central count absentee. And so this means rather than polling places, absentee ballots being sent to polling places to be counted at each individual polling site and included with those unofficial results from that reporting unit, that the absentees for the entire jurisdiction are counted centrally. So some of our larger jurisdictions like Milwaukee and Green Bay, they use central count, and they count all their absentees in a central, publicly observable facility. So you're going to see the unofficial results coming in from the polling places. Those don't include absentees in those 39 places. The absentees are going to come later. Once they're finished being counted, the absentees come in and they're added to each of those unofficial reporting units to create that final result set. We've worked a lot with the counties and the municipalities to make sure that they're making that clear on their websites when they have central count jurisdictions, and if the absentees are added or if they're not. Some of our central count locations, they're smaller. And so they might be able to add those central count absentees into the reporting units without there being a delay. Others are very large jurisdictions where there's a lot of absentees to be counted. And so those absentees come later. So I know it seems like a lot of words on 39 jurisdictions, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, because every election, there's confusion where voters think that the totals have changed for those reporting units, when in fact, that's how the process is designed. But I really think it's more of a communication issue and just making sure we all understand how it works. We'll talk again tomorrow. So I think we have another one scheduled for 11:30, a media availability for 11:30 tomorrow. And we can talk about the certification process. But I think that's probably enough for tonight to get everybody started as you're writing your stories and reporting out about today. And with that, I would turn it over to all of you for questions.
First up is Mary Jo Ola.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, great. Thanks so much for this call. Wanted to ask about something specific that we've been hearing in our area here in the Milwaukee region, Southeast region. Our stations received numerous complaints from voters and observers in Kenosha and West Dallas about voters who are allowed inside polling places wearing campaign hats, pins, and other clothing. I know last week you guys sent a news release reminding voters that wearing campaign clothing to the polls was considered electioneering and against the law. So tonight, being that we've heard these complaints, what's your message to voters whose complaints to election officials went unanswered?
Well, I don't believe that anybody's concerns went unanswered. I don't think that that's a truth. Certainly anytime that somebody is violating the electioneering laws that are established, there's action taken at that polling place. Sometimes the course of action, again, established by the chief inspector of that polling place, is to not create a disturbance, right? Sometimes there's voters that want to draw attention to the situation. And sometimes the best thing you can do to keep the orderly conduct of voting is to get that voter in, allow them to cast their ballot, and have them move on their way. And so I think our chief inspectors, they're in charge of their polling places, and their job is to make sure that voting is conducted fairly for everyone, and that there's not disruptions that cause any sort of disruption for the voting process. So I'm not aware of any disruptions to the voting process. And so I think that means that our chief inspectors have done a great job of making sure that those situations are resolved in the best way.
The other thing to add about that is that the poll workers are not law enforcement officers. Electioneering is a crime, and if law enforcement would have to enforce that. So, next is Chris Hubbuck.
Just wondering if we have turnout numbers tonight. And then secondly, earlier today, you had mentioned that there were no credible threats against any polling places. I just wondered if we can close the loop on that.
Yeah, there continue to be no substantiated or any sort of threats against our polling places throughout today or into the evening as well. We continue to have regular meetings with our partners in law enforcement and the intelligence community, and we're not aware of any existing threats against any of our polling places or counting facilities. In terms of turnout numbers, no, I mean, again, there's no state aggregate of unofficial results tonight. So, I'm sure somebody will do the math and go into the 72 counties and start pulling together some of those unofficial turnout numbers. But they're still going to be unofficial until results are certified, which the statutory deadline is December 1st. So after December 1st, certainly, but tonight there's no official aggregate or turnout numbers.
Thank you.
I have a question from Alexa.
Hey, Megan. Thanks for doing this. Do you have a sense of how many jurisdictions are expecting to count overnight through the night? And just to clarify, is that a state law that they're required or at least supposed to make every effort to keep counting until all ballots are counted, or is that a rule?
Thanks for the question. It is a state law. The state law says that when tallying absentees, when tallying votes, I should say, it continues without adjournment. And so that is a state law to make every effort to do that. And I apologize. What was the second part of your question?
Oh yeah, just if you have a sense of how many places are going to be counting through the night.
Yeah, so thanks. I would start out by saying that it is in no way, shape, or form unusual for jurisdictions to still be counting into the morning. I cannot recall an election in my 9 years with elections where I have gone home before midnight or it hasn't been well into the next morning. And so I think every election, counting continues into the next morning. So I won't speak for some of our jurisdictions. I think it's best to get the information right from them. But I know some of the larger jurisdictions are predicting that they will be counting into the morning. I haven't heard from, a lot of smaller jurisdictions. One of the benefits, I think, of our decentralized system in Wisconsin, so, we do elections at the municipal level. Most states do it at the county level. And so that means that in some ways, the votes are distributed across a lot more municipalities. So we have a lot of small jurisdictions. And so the majority of our jurisdictions will probably be wrapping up shortly. But those large jurisdictions with all those ballots, they'll take the time they need to do the job right.
And next is Felicia Bolton.
Hey, Megan, it's Felicia Bolton with News Nation. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Thank you so much for doing this for us. We really appreciate it. I just had two questions to pair with you. When you say the count could go into the morning, do you think that could be around 4 a.m. or 7 a.m.? There were some talks about it being extremely late. And also, what was the key factors that led to such a smooth election day for Wisconsin? What kind of made the difference for you guys?
Well, thank you for the questions. And, again, I can't speak for our local election officials, but I've heard predictions about, early morning. And again, I think it's best to come right from them, from some of our larger jurisdictions. But I haven't heard of any that are predicting, 7 o'clock. But I have heard some predictions around, as I'm sure you have too, around 3 or 4 this morning. So we'll see. Again, I think none of us will hold them to that, right? We want them to do the job right. So however long it takes for them to do the job, the really important job that they have in front of them, I'm sure they're exhausted. I'm exhausted, and I don't, even have to, I don't have a job that's nearly as hard as theirs. And so, I'm sure that they want to get out of there, but they take their job so seriously that they're going to stay until each ballot is counted and each ballot is counted accurately. So, however long that takes is how long it takes. In terms of key factors for a smooth election, preparation. I mean, our local election officials, our state election officials, my staff, election officials work tirelessly, and that is not hyperbole. They have been preparing for this around the clock without stopping, since our April election. And since, there was so much new voter behavior and new challenges that came our way. This is also our 4th statewide election in 2020. So we've had opportunities to really refine our process. We have a really strong commitment in Wisconsin to voter usability, right? Taking a look at our process and making sure that if there's something that doesn't work or people don't understand, that we try to create ways for them to engage with the information that makes sense to them. So I think it's just the tireless preparations of our local election officials to get us to this day. It was not an accident that today went smoothly. It was incredibly intentional and due to their preparations.
So those are all the questions that I have. Nobody else has raised their hand. If anybody else wants to jump in, Adam Brewster from CBS.
Hey, Megan, I had to miss the top. Were there any major updates as far as like top line numbers or anything that you provided there? I hate to be the guy who asked that, but just.
No, it's okay. I really mean it when I want you all to ask your questions, because I know you're writing the stories tonight and I want everybody to have the facts to get it right. I do not have any numbers, but I talked a lot about how those unofficial results are posted. So we don't have any state aggregate. That's just not a role that we have by state law. So we do post the links to the county websites where they post the unofficial results from each of the reporting units, but there's no statewide aggregate of turnout or anything like that until results are certified, which happens on December 1st. But I'm sure somebody will create an aggregate.
Well, and what happens is the AP will have a number in the in the morning or whenever it is, and you take that number and you divide that by the voting age population to get the turnout number. So, Mary Jo Ola, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify or get an update if there is one. During the 5 o'clock, you'd mentioned that there were about 970 absentee ballots that were returned and marked as having some sort of deficiency. Is there any sort of update to that number tonight?
Again, even probably when I gave that original number, it was probably a little stale, right? Because our local election officials are processing the ballots at the polls. So today is very different as things come in terms of how fast they get that into the statewide database. So we don't have a new number, but I expect by, well, maybe even tomorrow, but certainly in the next couple of days, as they do that data entry, that we'll have more information about that. But we don't see a whole lot of change, around election day in terms of the data being entered because they're busy elsewhere.
Felicia, did you have another question? Or did I forget to lower your hand? Nope. So I guess not. So John Neeser, sorry if I mispronounced your name.
No, thank you very much. Just wondering if there's any update on how it turned out as far as poll workers. Was the National Guard needed at any locations, and what numbers were needed?
Thanks. That's a good question. I meant to bring that up. So there was a total of about 420 Guard that were on reserve today. Some of them prior to today had already been, assigned polling locations throughout the state where they reported this morning. But we maintained a reserve of around 200 all throughout the day. Some of that was shifting, that happened between jurisdictions that no longer needed support that they thought they might need. But we did not hear of any emergency shortages. It was really jurisdictions that said, hey, we could use another set of hands to help us out with counting ballots, or we could use some more folks. But it's nothing like we saw in April or even in August or the May 7th congressional race where there were just these shortages. So I'll keep saying it, but our local election officials are just incredible, and they did such a good job recruiting not just enough poll workers, but emergency reserves on their own. So we really didn't need a whole lot. At the end of the night, there were some jurisdictions we called out of gamey because they're working on remaking some of their ballots because of that issue with the timing mark. A few extra were sent over there because they could use some extra hands. Green Bay said they could use a few extra this evening to help out at Central Count. But really, we maintained a pretty healthy reserve all day and did not see any critical or serious shortages. It was really more or less just places that could use another set of hands. But we're very grateful for their help. I mean, they've been phenomenal. It's a really cool organization to get to work with, because if there's a need or somebody does just need an extra set of hands, they are able to respond really quickly. And it was a really great experience, and we're very grateful for them and their service.
Next is Patrick Marley.
Thank you again for doing these. Are there any problems with shortages of ballots in any jurisdictions? And if so, where are they? And what do you do if you run out of ballots? What's the solution?
Yeah, we did have a few small jurisdictions that earlier in the evening said that they were getting short on ballots. But what happens then is they call their county. Counties have the statutory responsibility of printing and distributing ballots, and so the counties work to get them more. So I didn't hear of any place that actually ran out. They let us know, and they let their county know as soon as they thought that they might start running out. And then from what was reported to us, the counties were able to get them the ballots they needed to close out the night.
Thank you.
I have a question from Fox 11.
Hello, Megan. This is Bab Santos with Fox 11. Can you hear me? Hi, I'm just wondering if you could expand a little bit about the Guard members sent to Central Count in Green Bay. How many, and just how did they help there?
Yeah, so that would have to be, I think, a better question specifically for them, because they're the ones assigning the roles. But usually what happens is that if we have a reserve member that's sent to a jurisdiction, they're going to use their seasoned poll workers for any of the more complicated roles. And then National Guard or less experienced poll workers might help with some of the supporting but very important roles, be it disinfecting surfaces or helping to, get materials to the right place. So they would better be able to answer that than I. But I believe we were able to send between somewhere around 15 additional service members to Green Bay Central Count to help them this afternoon and evening.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Excuse me, anybody else have questions? I'm not seeing any.
All right.
So as Megan mentioned, we'll see you at 11:30 tomorrow morning. If you're awake then, I will send out an invite with the link shortly. And if you have any other questions or other things pop up, the easiest way to get me through the night is by email. My email address is reid.magney@wi.gov. So thank you.
Thank you.
This program is a production of government proceedings and events at the state capitol. Government proceedings and events at the state capitol.